The Outer Worlds 2 is bloody good. Ignore the rage engagement accounts. Play if you, number 1, enjoyed the first. 2. Have some understanding of nuance in writing and why something that appears to be clearly saying one thing may be saying something quite different. 3. You like interesting side quests. 4. You enjoy stealth. 5. You enjoy big guns. 6. You like spending way too much time enjoying computer terminal conversations. 7. You fancy yourself a hacker. 8. You like games. But don't play if you're the opposite of all these things above and don't really like games but would rather spend your time complaining about total play numbers on Steam or the company who owns the company making the actual games.
We have an accord.
What is up, Space Pirates? This is your Admiral, the ridiculously ruthless Dr. Disaster, and there has been a concerted push from all the shills and game journalists out there over this past weekend trying to make Outer Worlds 2 sound appealing.
It's impossible.
As an example, here's an article that popped up from Polygon where they're saying, "Sorry Baldur's Gate 3, but the Outer Worlds 2 handles companion relationships way better." First of all, even if that were true, who gives a shit about companions when we are talking about these shitty designs like these companions have in Outer Worlds 2? But more than that, it's hilarious that these idiots are transparently attempting to associate Outer Worlds 2 with the overwhelmingly popular Baldur's Gate in order to bring in customers for Obsidian. Though in all fairness, there has been a small surge in player count on Outer Worlds 2 on its launch weekend.
Not impressed.
The other day when I covered this game's launch, we noted that it only hit about 13,000 concurrent players on Steam, but over the launch weekend, they have spiked up to about 18,000. This is comparable to the numbers that Obsidian got on Avowed several months ago, though it's noteworthy that they still fell behind that game, and they are also behind the numbers that they reached for the original game in the series, Outer Worlds 1, and it's important to point out that for the original Outer Worlds, that game did not release on Steam until a year after the game launched, and they still couldn't beat those numbers.
Look at you! Fucking pathetic!
So yeah, Outer Worlds 2, despite the best efforts of all the shills out there, the game has managed to flop. According to VG Analytics, and I grant you that this is just an estimate, but they have Outer Worlds 2 at only about 79,000 units sold on Steam over launch weekend. That is completely terrible, and if this were Star Trek, I know exactly what McCoy would be saying right about now.
He's dead, Jim. Fascinating.
Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've had a lot of people tell me that they have been unwillingly unsubscribed to the channel, so make sure you check on that, and also, don't forget to follow me over on X, where my handle is Dr. Disaster 1. And if you want to help keep the lights on, consider becoming a member of the channel for as little as $5 per month. Anyhow, let's get into the post-mortem for Outer Worlds 2. As I showed you a minute ago, the game has sold about 79,000 units on Steam so far, and you have to keep in mind that after a game launches, typically the sales dry up and slow way down. This was a really bad start for this game. In fact, it is a slower start than what we saw for Avowed, which, as of the time of this recording, Avowed has sold about 320,000 units on Steam after almost 9 months on the market. The game also released on Xbox, but even if you account for the units they sold on that platform, the estimate is that they are still quite a bit below 500,000 total units sold, since Xbox is a much less popular platform than Steam. And now, Avowed is said to have a budget of around $100 million. In order to reach the break-even point on the cost of the game, they would need to sell around 2 million copies at its full price of $70. The math on that works out like this: when a game sells, the platform that sells it takes a roughly 25% cut, leaving a studio like Obsidian with a little over $50 per copy sold. So with all of that in mind, Outer Worlds 2 likely has pretty similar budget numbers. They started developing the game all the way back in 2019. It would be a little surprising if their total budget for 6 years of development, and also including marketing, was only $100 million. But for the sake of argument, let's say that it is. We'll say that it's roughly what they had for Avowed. They would still need to sell 2 million copies or so at full price to hit the break-even point, and they are trending behind Avowed, which still hasn't sold 500,000 copies in almost a year. Now, one thing that will help Outer Worlds 2 is the fact that PlayStation users have access to this game as well. Avowed was only on Xbox and Steam, but as many of you know, I have contacts in retail spaces, people who have access to the sales data of nearly 50 retail stores between them. And in those nearly 50 stores, the pre-order numbers for Outer Worlds 2 were higher than what we saw for Avowed, but not much higher at all. They didn't even hit 30 total pre-orders for the game in those stores combined. And when you combine that data with the numbers on Steam, which are trending behind Avowed, well, it would be surprising if the total sales figure for Outer Worlds 2 ends up beating Avowed. At this point, I highly doubt that Outer Worlds 2 will hit 500,000 sales in a single year. This will amount to a less than $25 million return on Microsoft's $100 million or more investment. And yes, I know that there are people out there that will be playing Outer Worlds on Game Pass, and Obsidian will take some kind of revenue from Microsoft for putting the game on Game Pass, but they would need something in the neighborhood of $70 million to get anywhere close to breaking even on this game. And does anyone out there seriously believe that Microsoft is paying out $70 million for a game like Outer Worlds? Maybe for a title like Call of Duty or something, but how many new players does anyone really think Outer Worlds 2 is bringing in to Game Pass? Especially now that the price of that crap is $30 to play a game like this on day one. There will be people playing the game on that platform, of course, but most of them will be incidental. They'll be playing it because it's available, as opposed to going out of their way to subscribe just to play the game. And for anyone out there who wants to bring up this thing that always gets brought up, it always happens whenever I talk about a Game Pass game, so I always have to mention it, but for anyone out there who wants to try to excuse the poor sales of this game on the fact that it's a day one Game Pass title, if you mention this in the comment section, then I need you to also explain to me why games like Clair Obscur, Oblivion Remastered, Starfield, Stalker 2, none of those needed excuses when they released. They sold millions of copies. And the reason is, of course, that people actually wanted those games, and people buy the games that they actually want. Gaming rentals, which is what Game Pass amounts to, those have been available since the fricking 80s. But anyhow, here's another component of the failure of Outer Worlds that must be covered in this post-mortem. Look at this article from Tom's Hardware as they rip this game apart and compare it to Borderlands 4 in terms of poor performance. It says here it's a new day, and another badly optimized AAA Unreal Engine 5 game has hit store shelves. A couple of YouTubers, including Daniel Owen, have discovered serious performance problems in the Outer Worlds 2 that almost mirror Borderlands 4's atrocious launch day performance. One of the most problematic graphic settings is the game's ray tracing mode, which prevents even AMD's Ryzen 7 9800X3D gaming champ from achieving 60 frames per second at resolutions well under 1080p. The article then goes on to say, and I will link it in the description if you want to read it in its entirety, but they go on to tell us that the title struggles to hit even 30 frames per second with some PC setups, so ultimately the game is cooked. We all saw what happened to Borderlands 4's sales after word of poor performance started spreading. The only reason we haven't heard as much about Outer Worlds 2 is because, quite honestly, nobody gives a shit about the game. It isn't just Outer Worlds 2 that's dead, it's Obsidian as well. The controversy that the studio got embroiled in last year helped sink them. But look at this post from Pirate Nation on X, where you can see that Obsidian's games have been losing players pretty consistently across the board. This is not the sign of a healthy studio, I will say that. But I'm gonna leave it there. Drop your mockery of Obsidian and Outer Worlds 2 into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.